They might be very small. Yeah, why don't we just occupy this? It's dashboard. How does a dashboard look like? The only dashboard that we know, for those of us who are familiar with cars, is just in front of me, and that's what they call a dashboard. So how does this look like? So we want to have a dashboard, and I'll be explaining what a dashboard looks like. The second one is the data source mapping exercise. And then with that, we produce what we call a data landscape. And some of you, if not most of you, have participated in this exercise, and we would want to show you some of the results that we have. That again feeds directly into the dashboard, but also feeds into the questions that have been asked in the room. Yesterday we were talking about, question formulation and using of data to be able to generate evidence. Where does the data come from? Where is the data? Where can we be able to get the data from? So those are questions that this exercise try to. Then the third one is the NIPN data repository. Again, when we have all these data and we have collected them, we need to keep them in a secure place and make easy access to them. That I will not talk about. I think I will use this time to talk about the two products on top. And then the four knowledge products, which includes policy briefs, research reports, and fact sheets, among others. Now, that also will not talk about it here, but we will maybe save it for another time. But these are some of the key products that we want to have for this year, but also continue growing and updating for the benefit of everyone. And then the last one, which I actually fixed in the program, because it's not in the original program, is to do some bit of capacity building efforts, but not necessarily, doing capacity building. So there's nothing like we are going to train on how to do data analysis or whatever. But I would want to specify a few areas that I thought could be important to do training on. And there I need your participation. So essentially it's a capacity building needs assessment, some little exercise of asking a few questions and then seeing how you people think about it and how you think we should be able to do it over the years. So this is how I'll be talking about. So in other words, I'll be talking about the dashboard, the data source mapping, and then I'll jump that whole lot in between there, and then I'll go to capacity building efforts. Okay, so the nutrition dashboard. I tried to find a very nice picture to show what the dashboard would look like, but I couldn't. In any case, I didn't think that this was for this. For now, I think we need to get it very raw and clear. It becomes a bit difficult then, but I think over time it can be actually very easy. So yesterday when I was showing the activities that we have under result theme 2, activity 2.1 was create a web interface, a dashboard to present summary statistics. The background for this is that addressing malnutrition requires multi-sectoral approaches, and so there are several factors that contribute immediate in the underlying and basic determinants of nutrition. Those which play a role in addressing malnutrition, and I think yesterday, again, not to repeat this, but Sumit tried to explain the underlying, the basic determinants and all of those things, and I think that was quite very helpful to break the ground. Now, irrespective of this, and as as different entities within the government, but also non-government actors, non-state actors, we know that the nutrition-related information is collected by several surveys and through several pathways and through different organizations, UBOS being the main one, but also some others, UN agencies, again, some research organizations and academia. They collect quite a lot of data, and they do separate surveys and studies. And when all these results are out there, they are presented in different ways to different people, and we don't have like one sort of like area where we say all these are brought together and can be accessed. So one of the NIPN objectives is to bring this information together and facilitate sectoral analysis of the nutrition situation. This seems like, yes, okay. Again, most of the data that is generated is in different sort of like formats, but it would need to be made clear and put in simple formats for all stakeholders to understand the key messages. So particular, breakdowns or granulations can be quite useful. And so having a summary of all those data sets using the subnational, we call it subnational because we want to focus as much as possible to the lowest unit of analysis, which could be a parish if we can be able to have data on that. But we could also be able to do at district level. What do I mean here is that you could be able to tell that, maybe wasting is lower in a district X, much lower in a district X relative to district Y. And you'd have to ask yourself why. Now, maybe in that community, women are not given the powers to produce food and make it available for their children. Maybe. So then, how is the level of education of women in that area? How is the breastfeeding done? That's just one example, but it could also be in terms of food production. What kind of foods do they produce? We have seen now, I think it's coming out very strongly, that in areas where people consume millet, okay, anemia is not that high. So that's basically, essentially trying to do that form of comparison, but in very simple ways, not necessarily doing a causal analysis, impact pathway analysis, so to say, but that's just showing the snapshot of what happens. So those summary statistics are quite important, and if they can be put in a visual, graphical format, then that would be even much more easy for understanding. Then this dashboard would also cover things to do with nutrition indicators, the intervention coverage, vitamin A supplementation, for instance, polio vaccinations, and you know very well that this can vary from one place to another. We would want to know why would they be varying from one place to another. Is that district so corrupt? Is that region so, not very well, they don't know, they are not aware of the importance of such vaccinations? Are people in the rural areas behaving the same as in the town areas? How much, for instance, how much meat is consumed in the urban areas versus the rural areas, and what does this mean for nutrition? So all these things are quite useful. So the objectives are mainly to initiate dialogue. Just like yesterday we had some form of debate asking ourselves what's important and what's not. If you're based on data, you can be able to tell, you can start saying, but why is this situation like that? Why is it that Uganda is still struggling with anemia, yet Uganda produces enough food? They have tried to do something, to reduce on malaria. They have tried to do things to do with iron supplementation. But why do we have that? So we need this dashboard to initiate that sort of like dialogue or debate, if you want, regarding these multi-sectoral indicators, programs, and investments. The second one is to quickly produce an initial multi-sectoral analysis of nutrition-related information at the subnational level. Again, this is now taking it from the national level, stunting rates. Again, here I would say that Sumit as well mentioned the things to do with this yesterday when he said, 29% of children in Uganda are stunted. Those were the data that were shown by DHS in 2016. But then there are pockets of stunting that are so high that are above even the national average. So what could we do? How can we be able to identify those things? And yeah. Okay, so what we have done, what is that also, just to explain a little bit, I didn't want to get into that, but I think this slide still came up, that the NIPN dashboard should be country-owned and appealing to all sectors. In the long term. In the short term, we might not have all the indicators, but at least that's key. Second one, it should be flexible format, easy and quick to produce, such that you only have, like, for instance, if it's web-based, you have the back end and you're putting in these indicators very quickly. You can pick them from any of the reports that you have, and then you can be able to see the results very quickly. It should tell a story with the questions to stimulate the discussion. Yeah? What is the role of the Minister of Trade? How far has fortification gone? Why is it that some other people are suffering from this kind of diseases, for instance, cancer and all that, but then some others are not? So then it should show time trends and geographical comparison. What is the difference between North and Southwestern Uganda? If Southwestern Uganda is today, considered the food basket of the country, then why is it that they have high malnutrition rates, especially in stunting? Why is it that in some other areas, stunting rates are lower, but anemia rates are high? Why? Is it because of the food they're eating or what? So how has this transformed over time? Since 2000, what has happened? Which areas are catching up and which areas are actually on the regress? And the NIPN dashboard should be aligned with the SAN-MIL framework, but also the national policy. So in this case, we are talking about UNAP-MIL framework, which was as well mentioned yesterday. So briefly, how has the dashboard been constructed? This is where I said that we need to come close because some of these things are going to be very small, however much I try. Oops, what happened? So we have so far produced a dashboard. Now, a dashboard in our case is not at the moment entirely exhaustive. It's work in progress. It will keep growing over time, and we will include as many indicators as possible depending on data that is available. And it has, is that okay? Do you want me to zoom in, make it bigger, or that's okay? It's fine? Hello? Can we make it a little bit more interactive? I'm talking alone and I'm bored. I may be also bored, but can we make it a little bit more interactive? I want to hear a yes or a no. Amen. Amen. Can we make it a little bit interactive? Amen. How many of you fear seeing numbers just by the mere look at them? You just, oh no, Patrick, you are a demotivator. Are you sure that's for real? I don't agree with you. Okay? Who fears? Just be honest, and then I will. Just be honest and tell me, I honestly feel I have a problem with those numbers. Well, we all have numbers on ourselves. This is a 5 because we have 5 fingers. Your age, definitely. Your height, your weight, that one can make very many of us feel uncomfortable about them. But we all have numbers, so we shouldn't fear them. And I will try to make them as easy as possible. I mean, this is not in any case to do with numbers. At the end of the day, it's going to be quite easy. But I have to take you through the process such that you know when we come to you looking for data, you know why we need it. Okay? So from what you can see on top here is that we have the domains. Domains here, so we would have like the first one, the first domain, which is nutrition situation. And under that, you would see several other things. So the short name for the indicators. So in other words, you have the indicators, and then the category of the population that is covered, and then the definition. On this side, the definition of that indicator. Then at this point, you even see how it is constructed, the indicator, how the indicator is constructed. So this is the numerator. So if you remember your fractions, for those who are not very familiar, you have something on top and something below. So a half, the numerator is 1, the denominator is 2. So this would be the numerator on top, the 1. And then you'd have the denominator. So out of these, what fraction, what part is making that sort of like indicator. And then the next line is showing the sources of information. Where do we get the data? So far you can see that most of our data are coming from DHS and UBOS population projections. There is also some level of own calculation. Then, but again, you'll see DHS, and then down there, I think you'll see UNHS. So meaning that we have not exhausted most of our data sources to be able to generate the indicators. So then next is the unit. Okay, so number, in that case, most cases are percentages because percentages are very easily perceived, expressed as a percentage. The year of collection, you see now, until now, I think we have most of the data covering up to 2016, from 2006 and 2016. For each of these indicators, would have the national average. What does it show? And how has it been changing? You remember we talked about the trends. And then would have the sub-regions. At the moment, there are 15, starting from Kampala, South Uganda, North Uganda, Busoga, Bukedi, Bugishu, Teso, Karamoja, Lango, Acholi, West Nile, Toro, Ankole. Please don't look at the numbers if you fear them. Just look up in the words. Okay? Chigezi is the last one. So those are 15 sub-regions. Okay? Now you'd want to see, assuming this is, I know it is stunting, but let me just, so you'd really see that in Busoga, stunting has been going down from 2006, where 39 reduced to 34 in 2011. Then it was actually like the national average in 2016. Now in Bukedi, it started at 35, came to 26, and was at 22%. So essentially, when you get 39 and you subtract 29, that means that Busoga has made strides in 10 years of 10%. So in other words, it's reducing stunting, just take it like that, every year by 1%, every year. So if you want to predict what's going to happen if the situation remains like that, it means that by 2025, they'll have reduced by another 10%, so maybe they can be at 19%. Hopefully, if they maintain that, that would be really good. Now, that's what I was talking about, comparison. So, but if you look at Bukedi, it was 35 and then it reduced to 22, which is a difference of 13%. So in other words, Bukedi was at a faster rate than Busoga. So if you want also to predict, then that means that you'd have to do like 1.5% per year if the situation remains the way it is without any change. Now, Bugishu was at 46 and then reduced 36, so that's another 10%. Now, places like Karamoja was very high, okay, in 2006. Then it reduced 35, which is a difference of almost 20%. So you want to ask yourself, what was done in Karamoja, okay, to be able to bring it here that was not in Busoga? In some other areas, it is not that high. For instance, if you look at Acholi sub-region here. Now, these are very close. 37, then 22. That's like 15%. But then Acholi, it was 34, basically 35 and 30. So it's like 5% reduction. So what is it that was done in Lango that was not done in Acholi? So those are all questions that this dashboard can bring. I can only be able to tell because I have the advantage. One, I'm trained in numbers. Two, I have been looking at them almost every other day. That's not what you have. How can we make it so simple for you to see this? Okay? So that's something that I'll be explaining in the next round. So in any case, let me just go back here. So, so essentially we would have, the front page and then nutrition situation, and then, and you can see there are so many indicators here. And then you'd have the immediate determinants of malnutrition, which include prevalence of diarrhea, the prevalence of early initiation of breastfeeding, prevalence of exclusive breastfeeding, prevalence of minimum dietary diversity, plus others. And then the nutrition-specific interventions. I suppose you still remember those things from yesterday's discussion in the afternoon. Again, can we be a little bit more interactive? Who can tell us what it means nutrition-sensitive intervention and nutrition-specific intervention? Somebody can volunteer? Anybody? Come on, just try. It's not an exam. Anybody? But you see, the point is that we want you, when you get out there and you say, yeah, we have been in a workshop and they talked about nutrition-sensitive agriculture or nutrition-sensitive interventions. And then this guy was talking all about nutrition-specific. Oh, who was doing that? NIPN, by the way. NIPN is great. So we want to do that. We want to be sure that when we meet next time, we are not starting from where we stopped at some point. So anybody who wants to volunteer? Yes, Mr. Katamba.
Nutrition-sensitive interventions may not necessarily target nutrition per se, but you can trace the outcome of a given intervention to nutrition. Like in our case, in gender, we have Women Entrepreneurship Program. The objective of that program is to empower improvement in livelihoods so that this woman can afford basic needs, including food, a balanced diet, and can afford to take children to hospital. So we believe that if that is achieved by this woman, then we would want to see an outcome, an improvement in nutrition of his children in this household as an outcome. Yeah. So such an intervention, in this case, OEP, YLP, SAGE, those are nutrition sensitive. Whereas when you go to Ministry of Health, issues like deworming, immunization, those are now nutrition specific interventions.
Yeah. I think we start to get it, but now